Fundamentally, you need to have a desire to change and you need to have the belief that change is possible. And one of the things I hear most often from men is that you've either got it, you're either born attractive or you don't have it. And then they usually cite something that happened in high school or something that they've seen that explains why they don't have it or why somebody else has it. And in essence, why they cannot learn it. So they don't have the belief that change is possible. And it was very difficult and very hard for me to admit this, but for these people, dating coaching doesn't work. And I'll elaborate on this in a moment and give you two specific examples of people that I worked with in the past to show why it will work for some people and why it won't work for certain other people. But let me clarify one thing first. One of the big misconceptions is this idea of just being yourself. And this advice often comes from women. And the truth is that women can just be themselves, because if you are an attractive woman, yeah, you need to take care of yourself, of your looks, of your fashion. Don't get me wrong, they also have to do something, but they can essentially be themselves from a personality perspective. On the flip side, as men, being ourselves is usually not enough. A man doesn't really hold value from society's perspective unless he proves his value by creating value that he's adding back into the system, by becoming successful, by becoming charismatic and helping people have a good time, right? You need to become something in order to be of value. And that is why, as a man, just being yourself is simply not enough. And this advice is so misguiding. Yeah, be yourself works once you've climbed the ladder. Once you are somebody, then you can be yourself. But until you are there, you are the charismatic, fun, successful, good-looking dude, being yourself is simply not enough. Let me share a story of a guy that I met in 2015. So a long time ago, over 10 years at this point. This guy was not blessed genetically. He's rather short. He's not supermodel looking. So he had all the reasons to victimize himself and think, oh man, yeah, it's just not in it for me. I cannot make this happen. Girls don't like me. And the sad part is that's exactly what he went on to do. When you ask him about the type of girls he wants, he would literally show you professional supermodels that he DMs, celebrities that he DMs, and is surprised why they're not responding. He will pretty much talk down at every single girl that's good looking, but not a supermodel, and will then judge why they don't like him. Yet this guy is not successful in terms of career or business, is not funny or witty, does not have a lot of charisma, and in essence, you could say he doesn't really bring anything to the table. So if you really look at it objectively, why would a very attractive woman with a lot of options pick him, right? That's the simplified breakdown. That's essentially what it comes down to. If you're competing with a lot of different options, you also need to put yourself in a position where you can be one of these options. The worst part of it is that he lacks any type of self-awareness or self-consciousness about all of these things that I just mentioned. Now, I've wanted to help this guy, even though he's not one of my clients, because he's part of my extended social circle for already a long time. And there was a moment where I had a chat with my own coach about it, and I was telling him that I want to help this guy, but it's simply not working. And my coach told me a very valuable lesson here. He told me that forced change has no value. If you force change upon somebody else, they cannot accept it unless they are willing to change. And willingness to change requires a belief that change is possible for you. So until you have that belief that change is possible, you will not have the willingness to change. And without the willingness to change, change is simply not possible for you. Now, the key takeaway of what he told me is people are always where they want to be. If they are in a situation that looks like they shouldn't want to be in that situation, truth is they probably get more value out of being pitied for being in that situation than they would from being out of that situation. And that's exactly the same with this guy. He loves talking about how much his situation is bad, how unfair life is, and he kind of enjoys, at least on a subconscious level, this level of pittiness, other people making him feel like they have compassion for him. Whereas in reality, most people that know him for a while think, bro, get your shit together, get your life in order and become somebody. So change requires the desire to change and the belief that change is possible. And I want to give you two examples of people on the flip side who did completely change their life simply because they wanted to change and they believe that they could change against all odds. Now, the first one is one of the first people I ever coached, and he's now a famous dating coach in Germany. When I worked with this guy, he had this burning desire to become great at dating. He also had the belief that it was possible, even though everybody that saw him would have said it's not possible. This guy had massive acne in his face. He was socially completely inept and autistic. He was doing some of the most weird things ever. Girls were walking away from him, but he believed change was possible. And simply by sticking with that, by working on getting better, by becoming a better communicator, by working on his external appearance, by becoming a more attractive man and building that persona, he became somebody that has massive amounts of success and can now teach other people. Again, against all odds, simply by allowing himself to believe that change is possible. Now, there's a second guy I worked with about 2 years ago, and he comes from a very similar situation as the guy we initially talked about in this video. He grew up in a small town, almost an hour outside of the next big city in Germany, a small rural town with a couple thousand people living there only. He is relatively short, and again, you could say he's not genetically blessed. He's definitely not a supermodel. Yet this guy wanted to change. He believed that change was possible. He did what was necessary. He decided to work with a coach. Then that didn't get him where he wanted to get yet. Then he reached out to me, we worked together, and now he is dating his dream girl, which for me was so satisfying. Now, he put in a ton of work, but again, the big difference between him and the first guy, and that is the only real difference, is not the desire. They both wanted a better dating life, but here the belief that it was possible to get there. And by allowing himself to believe that he could open his mind to learning what was necessary, to becoming a different person, to becoming a more attractive version of himself, and to ultimately live the life that he wanted to live. Now, what is the key takeaway from this video? I want you to start believing in your ability to become a different person, to become a more attractive person, in your ability to master this. Believing is something that you do actively, that you choose to do. It's not something that happens. For some of us, we do have a certain belief in certain things, but most of us lack self-belief in some aspects of our life. So I want you to just allow yourself the possibility that change is possible, and asking yourself what the best way would be to achieve that change in your life, bring it upon yourself, and then go after it. Because if you want something and you believe and allow yourself to believe that it's possible to achieve that, then it's all about figuring out a way to have it. That said, if you have any questions, as always, comment down below, and I'll see you in one of my next videos.